All right, so we are at about 110 attendees, and that number is still going up. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with the introduction. So hello and welcome everyone to the BCI Pioneers Coalition launch event. So the BCI Pioneers Coalition, just a brief overview, is a group of individuals who have all participated in implantable BCI research. And they hope that in creating this organization, they can spread the word about brain-computer interface technology and answer any questions that patients that may be looking to use this technology in the future and their caregivers might have about the technology, and then also questions that people who are just interested to learn what it's like to actually use this cutting-edge technology. So I think you'll hear some really exciting answers from them on that and get some insight. So I will be your host for this meeting. I'm Harrison Canning. I am a BCI guy. I have a YouTube channel and other content platforms where I produce educational and entertaining content. And so that is, my goals are very much in line with this, where it's just about spreading awareness. And I want to say that I'm really honored to have been chosen to moderate this event because this is very special for me. A large part of the reason that I've gotten into neurotechnology was actually seeing videos about all of these pioneers and others who've participated in this type of research and reading those papers. And so it's very, very cool to me to be able to talk to them and hopefully inspire others who are listening to engage more with this incredible technology. But that's enough about me. This is about our amazing panelists, the BCI Pioneers. So we have Jan Scheuermann, Ian Burkhart, Nathan Copeland, and Nancy Smith, and all of them have brain implants and have participated in incredible BCI research. I will give them all an opportunity to talk a little bit more about themselves and give you a better intro in a minute, but I want to run through a quick agenda of what this event will be. So, like I said, we'll have the pioneers introduce themselves. We'll go through a panel discussion on some preset topics that we've talked about. And then we're going to take audience questions, as I mentioned before. So again, please feel free to drop those questions in as we go, maybe even points of clarification. I want to hear a little bit more about this piece. So again, feel free to do that because we will look at those in sequential order. We'll also have some survey questions at the end, so please stick around. So please stick around so that you can answer those questions because it helps us out. I want to give a thank you on behalf of BCI Pioneers Coalition to BlackRock Neurotech for providing some early support and a platform for us to host this event. And also mention that BCI Pioneers is an independent organization that welcomes all companies building brain-computer interface and other neurotechnologies and welcomes all BCI research participants as well. So I want to toss it over to Ian to give a more in-depth explanation of what the BCI Pioneers Coalition is. So Ian, microphone to you.
Thanks, Harrison. Everyone, thank you so much for joining us today. I do want to talk a little bit about what the BCI Pioneers Coalition is now that we've, just officially started this summer. And it's really just a group that's led by the individuals who have been implanted with BCI devices, and it's established in order to help design a set of ethics, guidelines, and best practices for future patients, clinicians, and also commercial industry that are engaging in BCI research and devices. The coalition really hopes to amplify the experiences of all of the pioneers. And I think it's very unique that it's a group of pioneers that are starting this coalition and then being advised by industry and clinicians and researchers, rather than that being the other way around. Our goal is really to provide recommendations for the future direction of BCI as we have all experienced it firsthand, and make sure that it's moving in a proper direction that the patients that are using these devices can get the most benefit out of.
Yeah, amazing. Like you said, I think it's so important that we're hearing from all of you individually because there's so much that can be learned, both on the personal side of how this is helpful technology, but also on the scientific side as well. I think most of the time we hear from researchers, which is great, but it's a really important perspective. So I love that you put this organization together. So we're going to go ahead and get started here into the questions, but I want to send some social links out here, which I will do again at the end, but you can find them on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter at BCI Pioneers. They're also on LinkedIn and have a Discord, which we'll talk about more at the end. You can find their website at bcipioneers.org. All right, so with all of the introduction stuff out of the way, let's go ahead and learn a little bit more about each of our pioneers. So if each of you could just give a background on who you are, and then what research you participate in and where. And if it's all right with you, could we start with Nancy? Does that work?
Sure, that'll work. My name is Nancy Smith, obviously, and I was implanted in the early in August or September, about 8 years ago, and I was involved for 6 years with Casa Colina in California, which is a rehab hospital, and UCLA did the implants. Prior to being paralyzed, I was a high school teacher in computer animation and computer graphics.
Cool. Very cool. That's awesome. Let's go over to Jan then next.
Hi, Jan Scheuermann. I did my research at the University of Pittsburgh from February of 2012 until October 2014. I controlled a robotic arm with my mind.
Yes, you did. Some very cool videos that we have coming up from each of you using your brain-computer interfaces, and some cool ones about you feeding yourself some chocolate and other things that we'll get to. All right, let's go to Ian.
My name is Ian Burkhart. I did my research at The Ohio State University in collaboration with Battelle Memorial Institute. And we were using my BCI to control a functional electric stimulation system or sleeve that was placed on my arm to restore hand and grasp movement. I had my device implanted in April of 2014, and then it was removed in August of 2021.
And Nathan, can you close us off?
I'm Nathan Copeland, and in 2014, I enrolled in a study through the University of Pittsburgh that was actually a continuation of the study that Jan did, but where Jan only controlled a robotic arm using implants in motor cortex. I am the first human in the world to have implants in sensory cortex that they can stimulate directly into my brain to make it feel like sensations are coming from my actual hand. So that's what I've done. So I'm also currently the record holder for longest chronic BCI implant. So I'm still doing it.
A crown you took from Ian very recently. I understand both of you have had them for a long time. Very cool. Okay, so I have some videos to play for each of you, and I would like to, so I will play those videos, then I would love for you to comment on the applications that are in them, and then talk about what were the most exciting applications that you have been involved in. So let's go ahead and do that. And again, we're going to do that same order, starting with Nancy.
Before her accident, Nancy loved to play the piano. As a result, researchers wanted to see if they could use a brain-computer interface to restore this ability. The videos you're looking at now show the training process that Nancy and the other pioneers went through to train with the system. Notice how she is controlling the cursor to move toward the highlighted circles just with her thoughts. After she trained, she was ready to play a virtual piano. Let's take a look. I'll play it twice because it's pretty quick. We only have this short video to go by, but Nancy was able to practice with the piano to the point where playing became natural and almost subconscious. This became an important part of the research findings.
Wonderful. So there we have some visual examples, but Nancy, can you tell us about your experiences using the BCI and what were the most exciting things that you've done? And of course, if I missed anything as well, please.
Okay, well, that video chunked up. I don't know if it did for everybody else, but
Oh no.
you could see the implants, 2 of them. That's what the pedestals were in my head. And I was expecting to see a piano keyboard on the screen, but I think I just saw green circles.
There was a piano keyboard on there. Did the rest of our panelists see that?
I did.
You
Okay.
did. So
All right.
maybe it's just slow internet there. But everybody, yeah. So what they saw was you training, which was those green circles, and then yes, there was a clip of you playing the piano. So that's in there.
All right. So they wanted me to pretend I was moving my fingers, and after several trials of just checking to see if that was actually happening, then the keyboard came up, and I was able to play Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, and the keyboard in front of me on the monitor was able to pick up my movements. And all I had to do was think about it, just as if the piano really was there and I really was touching it. There wasn't anything missing whatsoever. It was just a natural movement, and the sound came through as a result.
Amazing. Yeah, I know that the researchers were surprised with that it became somewhat subconscious, right? It was just, it was so natural for you that you were just able to play even before you were thinking about doing it. Yeah, I think that's amazing. So incredible.
The interesting thing was you have to know where middle C is on a keyboard. And when it was first set up, what I hit for middle C was not the right key. So it had to be switched around a little bit. I don't even know but both of us looked at each other and said, wait a minute, that's not middle C. And that had to be adjusted so that we were actually hitting the correct keys for sound.
See, and this is why they needed someone who played piano, right? So that's very cool. You were the right person to pick for that. That's awesome. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at a video for Jan, and then we'll have the same questions for you about that.
Jan was an early pioneer of neuroprosthetic control. You can see that back in 2012, she already had expert control over the device, accurately grabbing objects of different sizes and moving them to different targets. When asked how she did it, she'd often say that she would just think where she wanted the robotic arm to go and her brain would do the rest. Jan was even able to use the arm to feed herself, opening a world of possibility for assistive use cases. One of my favorite moments in BCI history is when Jan fed herself a piece of chocolate, but I'll let her tell that story.
I accomplished a goal that I set before the surgery even took place. They were asking if there was something special I wanted to do, like touch my children's cheek or hold my husband's hand, and I said, my goal is BCI.
Amazing. Watching that video never gets old. I love that. So, and I also know that there were a couple other things that you did with the BCI as well. So if you'd like to elaborate on what we saw in the video, explain what that was like, and then if there was anything else that you did, maybe a flight simulator,
Well,
that would be great.
it was very exciting. When I facetiously told the researchers I wanted to feed myself chocolate, it was supposed to be a joke. And instead, they all looked at each other and said, "Yeah, we can do that." So that became one of the goals.
Did
I
that
remember I
surprise
did
you?
it absolutely. I didn't think that would be something we could do. So uh, I think it was in November, right around Thanksgiving, when I fed myself the chocolate and then a string cheese and then a piece of red pepper. And it was just exciting to do it after all this waiting for this goal. It was very, sorry to be repetitious, it's just very exciting to be able to do that. And then one of the other things I was able to do in May of 2014 is I was hooked up to a flight simulator. Then I was able to control a plane. First a little single engine Mooney, and then an F-35 jet. Then I was able to fly them, make them turn right and left. I was able to do barrel rolls, fly through the clouds.
Wow.
And when they first hooked me up to it, it just took me about a minute to understand the controls. And then I was flying in the clouds. And I was there. I was there, Harrison. I was out of my wheelchair. I was out of my broken body. I was flying in those clouds. And it was the most unbelievable natural high I've ever had in my life. And I don't
Wow.
think I stopped grinning for two weeks. It was just,
Wow,
it was
that's
thrilling.
amazing. Yeah, that's amazing how much you were able to connect with the device, that you just got into the plane and sort of, like you're saying, felt like the plane you were flying through. That's amazing. And can we expect you in the next Top Gun movie? I'd love to see
Oh
that.
yeah, I'll be there. I'll
I
be
would love
there.
to see that.
A lot of people were asking if I was going to be able to fly the drones now for the Army, and I said, when they've got bodied people able to do that, why would they, go with someone who's so limited? But sure, I'll be in the Top Gun movie.
Amazing. All right, we're gonna jump over to Ian now.
Ian is the first person to use a BCI to reanimate function in his own arm. Take a look at all of those cuffs on his forearm. Each one has electrodes that, when used together, can stimulate specific muscles, causing them to contract. The BCI system he used acted to circumvent his spinal cord injury, collecting motor signals in the brain and sending them to the stimulators on his forearms. Look at how much of a difference the system makes. This is with it off, and this is with it on. He's able to do complex hand movements to simulate making a dicey drink. A really cool unintended consequence of using the device is that Ian has actually regained some motor functionality relative to before he started the study. The research that Ian has participated in shows that many people with spinal cord injuries might not need to rely on external prosthetic arms.
Excellent. All right, let's hear from you, Ian, on what you saw there, and then anything else that you may have done with the BCI.
Yeah, it was certainly exciting to see there where I was able to restore movement to my hands. And that was something that when I had my spinal cord injury, I thought I would never be able to do again. With my level of injury, I have motor control over my shoulder to move my arm around in space, but I can't do anything really below my elbow with my hand and wrist. So being able to control functional electric stimulation to restore that hand movement, for me, was a game changer. And when I was in the lab and connected to everything, it really showed me what the possibility could be for the future. Like it was mentioned in that video I was able to use it a little bit as a rehabilitation tool and gain some therapeutic benefits from it, from being able to learn how to better control my shoulder movement within my arm. So that way I was able to do some more things at home, which was really nice, because in these clinical trials that we all participated in, you sign the consent form that says you will receive no benefit. But I was able to actually get a little bit of benefit out of it, which was great as a rehabilitation tool. Additionally, we were also able to do a couple other experiments where we drove a vehicle simulator, pretty much a car video game. You also saw using the stimulation arm or stimulation sleeve to play Guitar Hero, which I think was really exciting because it showed how quickly I was able to control the system, as well as being able to control individual fingers. I certainly got sick of some of the songs that we played, because we played about 2 or 3 songs the whole time, but it was a really awesome experience.
That's amazing. Yeah, I was so shocked when I saw that video for the first time too. That because you're right, it's not only is it individual fingers, but there's timing. Because honestly, like, you are better at Guitar Hero than I am. I am terrible at that timing. I'm just not musically inclined, I guess. But yeah, that's amazing to see that. All right, let's finish up with Nathan.
Here are some ways Nathan has used his brain-computer interface. This clip from the University of Pittsburgh Medical Center shows a researcher tapping the fingers of a robotic prosthetic connected to Nathan's brain. Nathan, who you'll see in this video is blindfolded, could feel a sense of touch through the prosthetic and would then tell the researchers what finger was being touched, such as pointer or index finger. He did this with excellent accuracy. In this video from Nathan's YouTube channel, BCI Can Do Better, you can see that not only could he feel through the robotic arm, but he could control it really well too. He's making a mixed drink of sorts in this video. This clip shows Nathan using a BCI-controlled mechanical glove to feed himself a taco. As you can see, Nathan loves using his BCI to play video games. Here he plays Final Fantasy, a complex 3D game, and he's absolutely destroying a bad guy. And finally, Nathan frequently uses his BCI to paint pictures, which he later sells as NFTs. By the way, Nathan, I'm super jealous of your multi-monitor setup.
I really am. That is, I've got 2 monitors, sometimes 3, and I don't know. Did you have 5 there? That was pretty impressive.
No, it's just a really big one.
Oh, really? Just all split up. Well, it's a very cool setup. So yeah, tell us about some of those applications that you saw there, and if there's anything else, and then what it felt like to feel through a robotic arm.
Yeah, so you saw a lot of different things there, and I think it's safe to say that not only am I the longest running BCI implant right now, I've controlled the most things with my brain. 4 or 5 different robotic arms and exoskeleton glove. Yeah, I've played a lot of games and drawn some pictures, and I still love drawing and playing games, and I've gotten to do stuff like I fist bumped President Obama in 2016, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I've just done a lot of things, and the real big thing for this study was the sensory feedback, and and yeah, that was one of those things that was amazing, and it's still amazing now, 7 years after. It's become second nature. Like I've felt it like a million times probably, but it's still amazing, and it's just basically they can stimulate on an electrode. I have 2 microelectrode arrays in my sensory cortex, and each one that they stimulate on can feel like it's coming from a different spot on my hand, and it can feel like things like pressure or tingles, like warmth, sometimes tapping or vibration, and it's just yeah, kind of nuts.
That's amazing. And you have a portable system, so you can do this at home, which is why you're able to do some of those different applications, right?
Yeah, I can draw and make a decoder that can play a simple games with, like, you know, I played like Sonic the Hedgehog and stuff that can have a couple direction buttons and like a jump button or whatever. Nothing too complicated right now, but yeah, so whenever I have free time, I try and get on it and,
Cool.
you know, do something fun with it. And it can't do any of the stimulation stuff because it's just a little medical grade tablet. So
Cool.
yeah.
Well, you mentioned that you met President Obama, so I'm going to play a little bit of a clip of that meeting.
Nathan is moving this hand with his brain. And so when he was giving me a fist bump or shaking my hand, these are his own signals that he's sending out that are manipulating with, you know, pretty amazing precision.
Yeah, so that's very cool, and it was interesting to hear. I cut it a little bit short, but his explanation too, and that he was able to understand very quickly what the system was doing and why that was important. Amazing. All right. Well, I want to keep things running along here so that we can get through our questions. But questions starting for Jan and Nathan. How did you find out about BCI research and decide to join? And were there any hesitations that you or your family members had about entering the study and getting a implanted BCI? Jan, we'll start with you.
There was a gentleman who did a brief study at Pitt for 30 days, and I read about him in the newspaper, and I saw a video of it, of his accomplishments. And at the end of the video, they asked for volunteers. Then I was watching the video with my attendant, and I said, "Karina, write down the phone number." And she said, "Oh, I already am." Then I called them and said, "Are you the people doing this research with the robotic arm?" And she said, "Yes." And I said, "Well, I'm a quadriplegic and I want to do that." And I met with the researchers and found out more about it. And I just wanted to move that robotic arm. So when they said, "Well, you have to have brain surgery first," I said, "Okay, I just want to move that robotic arm." And they said, "And you'll have to come into the lab 3 times a week to do this and have these big electrodes attached to your head." "Okay, that's fine. Just let me move that robotic arm." So I was very enthusiastic. My husband had, when he heard about it, had no hesitation. He said, "You'd be fantastic for that." Because he knew I was enthusiastic. And we thought that was a prime qualification. And some of my family was a little hesitant, but most of them said, "Go for it, Jan." So I did. My kids were very excited about it.
That's great. That's great. I'm sure that gave you a lot to talk about to family members, and people were interested to know how it was going. So that's very cool.
It did. As I did the study, I was sending out updates to my family with emails. And it went to, I've got a big family, I have 9 kids. So they were all getting these updates and finding out what was going on.
Oh, that's fun. That's fun. All right. So Nathan, same question to you. How did you find out about the study, and did you have any hesitations, or did anyone around you have hesitations or concerns?
In 2004, I was in a car accident that left me paralyzed, and when I was in the rehab hospital in Pittsburgh, they asked if I wanted to be put on a research registry, where if researchers were looking for people with certain that met certain criteria, they would be able to contact me directly. So I said yeah, because you never know what's gonna come up in the future, and it was probably around 2012 or so, because it was a couple years before I actually joined. I got a call and they asked if I wanted to join a BCI study and control a robot arm and stuff. I said, yeah, that sounds really cool, and I went to go in for a screening, and I actually didn't qualify because of their exclusion protocols. I had too much wrist function at the time, and so I was really bummed out. And then a couple years later, I got asked again. I said, yeah, I really wanted to the first time, and they said, oh well, we changed it, so you'll qualify now. And I kind of lucked out because, like I mentioned, this was done at the same lab that Jan was at. So by delaying a couple years, it let me get on to the kind of next phase that had the sensory implants too. So that worked out, I guess. And I did not have any hesitations or worries really. I was pretty just as soon as I knew I could do it, I kind of felt like, how could I not? Because I knew the criteria was so small, and not all my family was as enthusiastic as me, and so my mom was really against it, and at the time she was my primary caregiver, and it caused a lot of tension to where like she wouldn't talk to me for like a long time, and just thought I was crazy for wanting to have elective brain surgery after I had survived a car wreck. I had a stroke that I survived with no deficits, and luckily there were people like my grandma and my sister that said, if this is what you want to do, we'll help take you to your appointments and go in for the testing 3 days a week. And I was lucky enough to have enough people that were supporting me to go ahead with it.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I think that's important for people to hear, especially if there is anyone in the audience thinking about enrolling in these studies, because those are all very natural reactions. I mean, brain surgery is not normalized yet, especially like brain surgery for brain-computer interface. And so I think that's something that people have to grapple with, whether it's the patient or their caregivers and family members. So thank you for sharing that.
Moms will be moms.
Of course. No, I get that. So I'm going to jump over to Ian and Nancy now. What considerations should someone else take when deciding to enroll in a BCI study? Maybe general advice, or what can they expect? And Ian, we'll start with you.
I think there's certainly a lot to consider, and Jan and Nathan kind of briefly talked about it earlier about kind of how they participated in any hesitations they had. I myself didn't have any hesitations either, but I did want to make sure that I asked all the right questions. And it's kind of hard because you don't have a crystal ball to look into the future. My trial was supposed to be something that was 12 to 18 months, and it ended up being 7.5 years. That was definitely a lot of different planning that went into that. Additionally, you know, with the surgery, you need to make sure that you're comfortable with both having the device placed and then also having the device removed, and also making sure that you're, you know, at least right now how things are, that you're aware that this is for research purposes. It's not a device that's slated to, you know, particularly restore function in your home and in your everyday life. Additionally, you know, there's a lot of considerations that need to happen with, you know, how is this going to affect me long term? Is it something that, you know, will cause me to not be able to, you know, have an MRI or something like that? And if you need other imaging done, and what that possibility looks like.
So that's excellent. For the sake of time, I think that I'm going to keep running through these questions because we are getting in so many wonderful questions that I want to get to. So I'm going to go ahead and just jump now to the next question, which is, how has participating in BCI research changed your outlook on life and hope for the future? And Nancy, I want to start with you because I know that before enrolling in the study, you had written a book called Only the Rats Are Walking, about your experiences as a female paraplegic woman. So if you wouldn't mind briefly telling us what that was about, and then if there were any changes in your thoughts since finding out about BCI research and joining it.
Okay, my experience in rehab at a different facility than the one I worked at was not a good one. And I was angry and wanted to get my anger out through this book that I wrote in order to bring awareness and you know, understanding to people that weren't spinal cord injured, to know what this life is like, that we are basically, you know, I myself have to depend on someone to do every single thing for me in my life. And that's from, you know, hygiene to touching my nose. And again, with having lost my career at that point as a teacher, just fueled my anger that much more, that I'm a capable person and I can do things. My mind's good, but I'm just stunted in every way. And I was actively looking on the government websites for something to be involved in for research. And I actually had signed up for BrainGate in Stanford, but I didn't hear back. And this was my rehab doctor that told me about this study. And I knew it wasn't going to improve my life afterwards, you know, as far as any functionality went. But I also knew that here was a woman willing to do this research, which is mostly men do a lot of this type of research, or research in general. And after meeting with the team at UCLA and the team at Caltech, and I was informed that, well, the chip, it's not deep brain surgery. The chip's just kind of lying underneath the skull a little bit, so that it was allowing me, I didn't worry too much about what the after effects would be. And as it turned out, everything went fine. Oddly enough, the day I finished writing was the very same day that my rehab doctor called me and asked me about being involved in the research. And my friends said, well, you can't end the book like this. It's not, people, you didn't leave any hope for anybody. And they were here at the same time the doctor called. And I said, well, I guess we have an ending, huh? Because then I was probably the next week, started doing the all the medical prep stuff for the surgery.
That's very cool. Again, in the sake of time, I'm not going to go through everyone, but does anyone else have any points that they want to add in terms of has being in BCI research changed or shaped outlook on life and hope for the future?
Yes.
Yes, it has. Okay, good. Good. Very succinct. Perfect. Okay.
It has
Yes.
for me.
How about you, Ian?
Likewise.
I have a saying on my wall that says, "You are more than the body you live in." And doing this research really brought that home to me. That just because my body was limited, my mind was not. So I started writing, which I've always done. Published a book on Kindle, and have been writing ever since.
Amazing. That's so important for everyone to hear all of your accounts and have conversations like this so that people can understand what it's like and why this work is so important. Okay, so I've got one more question for all of you. And again, for the sake of time, I'm not going to call out anyone specifically. So if we could just do what you just did and toss in ideas, that would be wonderful. But what are all of your visions for the future of neurotechnology and brain-computer interfacing? What do you think this technology will look like in the future?
I think it will continue to advance. The more they learn, the more the more questions that are asked, the more answers will come. And I foresee being able to have brain implants and devices that you can keep with you all the time that you just start up like we start up a computer now, and it'll be easier. Now, I certainly hope that it gets to the people that need it the most, because sometimes technology just skips and flies along and leaves a lot of people behind. But in our cases, we need to have some more opportunities to continue to grow as healthy human beings.
Absolutely.
I certainly agree. I think it should be something that is available to anyone who needs it to improve their quality of life and restore function. And also, I really envision it being something that is very easy to use, does not require a couple of PhDs in the lab making sure that nothing is falling apart, hardware and software wise. But really just something that you turn on and no one even really knows that you're using, because it's just another tool that you have to go about your everyday life.
Yeah, that's amazing. All right, well, Ian, could you give us a quick overview of what the future for BCI Pioneers Coalition looks like? Near-term initiatives or how people can help out, help support?
Certainly, yeah. We hope to have future webinars just like this. And so at the end, there's a survey that will ask about other topics that you might want to listen to and hear us speak on, or have us bring in other speakers. So that would be great to hear your feedback. We also have a newsletter that we'll be sending out. And we have a Discord server for kind of offline communication to really amplify the experiences of individuals like ourselves. The most frequent number that I hear as far as individuals with chronically implanted brain-computer interfaces is somewhere around the 36 number. And some of those individuals have passed away due to other conditions with their disability. But I think it's really important to share our experiences as much as possible, because when I was thinking about participating in the trial, it was something where I had quite a few questions but didn't really know exactly where to turn, and would have loved to be able to ask Nathan, Jan, or Nancy what their experience was like, just to set my mind at ease a little bit. And also, we want to overall improve awareness of BCI, as there's a lot of traction now, and normal people in everyday life have heard of BCI, which is great. But there's still some people that are very skittish of the fact that, oh no, they're going to be able to control my brain. So making sure that the right information is out there, and people understand that these tools are going to be very great to help individuals with disabilities.
Wonderful. All right, we have been getting so many amazing audience questions. We've got about 10 minutes for them, and then we'll do a little closer and hang on for a couple minutes after to try to answer some of those other ones. But as I mentioned in the beginning, if we don't get to all of the questions, which we probably will not, we will ask the pioneers and write up some answers and send that to you after, so no worries. But yeah, so many wonderful questions. So I'm gonna take a look through these here. And a lot of them I think that we've answered as we go through. So I see, where do the pioneers dream of this technology going in the future? I think we've covered that. And then lots of questions for Nathan about what it's like to feel the stimulation and feel a sense of touch through the arm. Which I think that we've hit on a little bit as well. But here's one. So very cool that Nathan, has been able to control a UI UX like that in Final Fantasy with such finesse. Are there other games that you have found easy to navigate, or any that were particularly difficult?
Like I said, I've been playing pretty basic games, like just old Sega games, and played a lot of Raiden 5, which is like flying a plane and shooting aliens or something. Pretty basic stuff. And then I played a lot of Slay the Spire, which is just moving a mouse cursor and clicking and dragging. So it's one of those things where right now I'm kind of just limited by the fact that the medical tablet isn't very powerful, like CPU wise, so I can't train a really complex decoder with a bunch of buttons and all that to really even try to see how complex of a game I could play. But hopefully one day I can try.
Very cool. Yeah, it's so fascinating to see what you're able to do with them. So I think this one is for Ian and maybe Nathan as well, but is the stim signal directly to the arm or fingers, for example, or does it pass via the spinal cord pathway? Is the BCI bypassing or taking a shortcut? So we'll start with Ian, if you have an answer to that.
Sure. So for my study, we were really doing one-way communication from the BCI to control the muscle stimulation sleeve on my forearm. So it was kind of just that one-way direction to stimulate the muscles directly through the surface of the skin. However, I was able to receive some feedback, and not in a manner that I would have ever imagined. And really, a lot of the researchers that we started working with wouldn't have imagined, I don't believe. But we were able to just see a little bit of change in the motor cortex where I had my one array implanted when I was touching something or not, which was great because I don't have normal sensation in my hand. So when I was able to reach out and grab onto something, they could see that change in the motor cortex and actually then pass that along to a vibratory cuff that they placed on my shoulder where I do have sensation. So that way I knew I was touching something. I had more confidence to know that I had a good grip on something before I picked it up. So it was able to go in both directions, but it still was completely bypassing my damaged spinal cord.
And for me, I guess I'll also just quickly tackle another question I saw. So I have two pedestals on my head, and each one is connected to 2 Utah arrays, one in sensory cortex and one in motor. And in the sensory cortex, they can just send it's intracortical microstimulation, so a little zap directly into my brain, and then that feels like it's coming from my hand. So it's also completely bypassing the spinal cord, and also, so when I use the robotic arm, a torque sensor in a finger would tell the computer to stimulate on an electrode that we had already figured out felt like the sensation was coming from that same finger, and then it would, stimulate on that. So that's kind of the route that took. But yeah, bypasses spinal cord.
Very cool. I love this next question here. So this is to any of the pioneers that want to answer it. For Jan, it seems like there was a moment where she felt like the BCI was truly hers, flying the plane, for example, as well as Nancy when C was finally mapped on the piano. Did others have similar eureka moments when it was like, wow, this is working?
When it worked?
I certainly did. Yeah. When I was able to first see my hand move, after, at that time I was working just with a virtual computer screen animation of a hand. But when I was able to have that first feeling of looking down and seeing my hand move when I was thinking about it moving, that was where it's like, okay, I'm thinking about moving my hand in the right way because I can actually see it moving. Because when someone asks you to move a part of your body that's paralyzed, it's really challenging sometimes to think exactly what you need to be thinking about. Because, previous to my spinal cord injury, that's certainly something I took for granted, was just being able to move any part of my body at, any point of time.
Excellent. All right, for this next one, could we all give one-word answers on, given your experiences, would you participate in additional studies in the future if you could?
Yep.
Yes.
Yes is, yeah, I think, from all of you, I just hear the excitement, and I've heard you talk about this before. So yes, that's wonderful. Ian, quick question. Were you able to feel, did you have any sensation in your hands when you regained some hand movements?
So I never was able to restore any sensation without using the device. Like I previously mentioned, when we were able to add the vibratory cuff kind of around my shoulder and high bicep, I was able to tell when I was touching something or not touching something. But really, I had to rely on a lot of, visual cues to know that I had a grip on an object. So it really only improved when I was using that section of the device.
Gotcha. Thank you for that. Jan, are you still with us? All right. I think we'll come. I think we'll come back to that. Yeah, this is early in the morning for us, so I think we'll come back to that. But there's a wonderful question that someone asked about what it was like to do the flight simulator, flying in the clouds, and what was she thinking about, like left or right, or a hand on a wheel. So if I could ask one of you, maybe Nathan, what are you thinking of when you're moving that prosthetic or when you're playing a video game to actually make it do that?
So it's one of those things that has always been really intuitive since, the very first time I used it, and it's basically as simple as, thinking about moving my own arm in a direction, and so for playing video games, I watch a cursor move to different targets on a screen, and I kind of just think about moving my arm in those same directions, and that seems to have worked out fine. So it's nothing too crazy, just think about moving my arm and it does the thing.
Amazing. Cool. All right, I've got one last question here that I'm going to combine for two of them. So what topics do you like to discuss that rarely if ever get asked, or things that you feel that scientists aren't really prioritizing that you wish that they would? And we'll wrap it up with this one.
That's tough because you have to write so many grants, to get approved. I'm
Right.
sure there's things scientists would like to do further, but are capped because maybe it sounds just too crazy to anyone that would be putting money behind it, and anybody. So I think the scientists have to walk carefully on what it is that they want to do, just because they're scientists and they have other visions of where we can go, and I think that's maybe what would slow us down, but I just hope that those hurdles can be crossed,
Amazing. Yeah, no, that's wonderful. And so we are coming up on the hour here. Maybe we can stick around a little bit after, but I just want to do some closing remarks. Also, a reminder to the audience that we will send answers. I know that there are lots of questions about what Nathan felt when using the brain-computer interface and having that stimulation, so we'll make sure that those get to you. One person asked if he's currently using the BCI. He is able to use the BCI at home and does frequently, so I can just answer that one. I also want to say that there are lots of really supportive, amazing comments that have been left. Some like super exciting and so happy for all of you. You are courageous and very blessed, and we are very blessed to have you as a part of the BCI teams, and just so many the comments of support, and just you are all doing so much for the BCI community. So thank you to all of you panelists for, one, putting together this coalition and doing all of this work because it's so important, and then two, being so open and willing to talk about your experiences. A big thank you to everyone in the audience who has participated. We got some amazing questions, and we just appreciate you coming to this event so much. And a reminder to please follow BCI Pioneers Coalition on social media. Get involved in the Discord, where you'll have faster access to be able to ask questions, and hopefully we can facilitate a really good conversation. All of the pioneers will be there. I will be there as well. So I look forward to engaging with all of you. But yeah, this has been really wonderful, and keep an eye out for BCI Pioneers Coalition events and initiatives in the future. It has been wonderful to have you. And a reminder that there's a survey at the end. Anything else that any of the pioneers want to add?
Thanks everyone for coming. I look forward to
Thanks for having me.
collaborating further in the future.
Amazing.